me be very, very clear. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you can't beat Scott Tolzien, I ain't want to talk about you no more. I mean, if they lose to this dude, we might have to talk about them tomorrow because we're going to revisit the results of today's games. But that's about it. I ain't want to talk about the Steelers anymore. Now, you can't beat Scott Tolzien? You've got to be kidding me. I ain't want to hear it.
Really hitting that zine hard, Stephen A. Ask and you shall receive. The Steelers dominated at Indy with a 28-7 win. Business. It was booming for Antonio Brown with 3 TDs. This Colts team was decimated by injuries, most notably, of course, Andrew Luck. Mr. Smith, your Steelers, how much stock are you putting into that win?
Nothing. Didn't mean anything to me. I fully expected them to win. My stock would have been had they lost. Had they lost, it would have dropped. It would have plummeted into an abyss, never to return for the rest of this season. You can't beat the Indianapolis Colts with Scott Tolzien starting as your quarterback instead of Andrew Luck. I would not have wanted to hear it. But then take into consideration, not only did that happen, but safety Clayton Gaithers, he didn't sit there. He didn't play because he was injured before the game. Ryan Kelly, your center, got hurt during the game. You know, what is it? Vontae Davis, he hurt his groin injury. He couldn't play. Denzel Good, shoulder and neck. He couldn't play. T.Y. Hilton, we all know what a bad boy he is. He ultimately ended up getting hurt his back. Robert Mathis hurt his elbow. So everywhere you turned, they were decimated by injuries if you were the Indianapolis Colts. When you combine that with Big Ben Roethlisberger, being able to hook up with Antonio Brown, who, by the way, is one of the top 2 to 3 receivers in the game, somebody that we debated was the best receiver in the game of football at the start of this season, and you have him in single coverage, you better have scored 3 touchdowns against the Colts. So I'm not putting much stock in it other than to say this. The Pittsburgh Steelers did what the hell they were supposed to do. So there is no abyss to fall in, never to be returned or never to be seen again for the rest of this season. That much I will give them. But I'm not putting much stock in it. It's just that now they don't fall into the abyss. I'm not overwhelmed. They were supposed to do this. This is what's called handling your business.
Even had they lost, whatever, short week, you lose to a team you should beat. It happens to most teams throughout the course of the season. Doesn't mean they would have lost the division. The Ravens are sitting there 5-5. I just spoke about their point differential. They're not that good. I never thought the Steelers were going to be that great this season as many others did. But without Martavis Bryant, you still figure you got a really good offensive line. You got a great future Hall of Fame quarterback who's playing at a very high level still. You have arguably the best receiver in the game. And I think you have certainly the best running back in the game, though it doesn't look like it this season. So what did we see here yesterday? And by the way, Tolzien was game. Tolzien was he was a good competitor yesterday, just didn't have enough to work with, and he was against a better team. So I agree that the Steelers' defense looked a little maybe better than they really are yesterday. If you're thinking that's what they are defensively, those picks late in the game, that's not really them. That's a desperate, quarterback who hadn't played in a long time, just trying to make something happen because his team is losing and they were picking him off. Big deal. But the offensive line played very well. Ben Roethlisberger threw 3 touchdown passes to Antonio. Ben Roethlisberger threw 3 touchdown passes to Antonio Brown. And Le'Veon Bell not only ran for 120 yards, but 80-plus were before contact. I mean, the offensive line was playing really well. My point, but there were times this season, Stephen A., where I looked at that offensive line, I thought, not what I thought it was going to be. They're back. So now my point is the Steelers are who I thought they'd be to begin the season. A team kind of like the Oakland Raiders or the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints in the sense that they have a really good offensive line, some elite skills position players, and a high-powered offense. And the question is, how well can they play defense? I believe not enough to be a serious Super Bowl threat, but certainly well enough to win the division. I think if you're a Steelers fan, you got to look at yesterday and say, yep, that's the team I thought they'd be. High-powered offensive team with a chance to win any given Sunday, or in this case, Thanksgiving Day. I think that's what you got to take away from it.
The operative words that you threw out there is looking at them yesterday, because the whole premise of it all was this. had you went up against this particular Indianapolis Colts team, led by Ryan Grigson, coached by Chuck Pagano, without the services of Andrew Luck, against that defense that was going to put Antonio Brown in single coverage because they were so decimated by injuries. If you were the Steelers and you had went out on that field Sunday night in Indianapolis and stunk up the joint or managed to lose to that team, you would have gotten that. To me, there's no way that anybody would have been able to make the argument that you just make. Certainly your argument is salient and profound at this particular juncture because they handled their business yesterday. But had they not handled their business yesterday, which was my point, it would have been a disaster. And I'm telling you right now, I would have been finished with them had they lost last night's game to this Indianapolis Colts team.
Nobody, like, let's say the playoffs were to start today and the Steelers were in them. If your draw was the Steelers, if you have to play that team, even if you're a fundamentally better team because you're balanced on both sides of the ball, you're still like, maybe we could have gotten some other kind, some other team, not those guys.
Not against
because
that
they
defense.
are so special on offense on the line.
Defense.
No, not the defense, but the quarterback, the wideout, and the running back are basically as good as it ever gets. You rarely have that three combination behind a good offensive line as the Steelers do right now.
Business booming, business handled. Steelers are in first in the AFC North. And you know what's going to be fun? Next week, a week from Sunday, we have Max's Giants versus Stephen A's Steelers. I think we need a little wager, gentlemen, coming up on the line. We move on to the matchup within the matchup. One of the storylines that dominated the game was Dez Bryant versus Josh Norman. And the trash talk, folks, it was at an all-time high. Dez, tell us about it.
Washington need to get their money back. The guy can't even go one-on-one. He bails and he holds. Never seen it before. Never just seen that out of a player.
I played him 3-4 times now, and in those times, I don't even think he broke 30 yards or had any significance on any kind of game.
Do you feel like he saw the real Dez Bryant this time around?
Man, he got lucky, put it that way.
You're talking last year. When he was there.
He got lucky then. He got lucky this year, too. We could have roasted his ass.
This guy bumping to me like, what's up? Where I'm from, we unload the clip, so pretty much whatever you want to do. Not that guy that see a challenge from the face and back down. That's not me.
I honestly feel like the guy's extremely soft. I think he's just a bunch of talk. If he was out and about, I wouldn't dare in my life let him talk to me like that.
Max, yesterday was a holiday. Lots of eyeballs on this game. Did they go too far?
No, this was awesome. I mean, this is what you love to see, that level of competitiveness. And really, I guess the spilling over, the tipping point where it really boiled over was when Norman's going to congratulate Dak and Dez gets in his face and all this. But it had been going on all game, and this is part of Josh Norman's value. Not the highest draft pick, not the most athletic guy at the position, not considered a shutdown corner, and yet, when he matches up with the other team's top receiver, or even when those two teams play, he manages to get under the guy's skin. Odell Beckham, as I said, last year, burnt him all over the field, like burnt Josh Norman. I don't care what Josh Norman says. We all saw the game. But Beckham started dropping passes. Beckham doesn't drop passes. Why did that happen? Once again, Dez Bryant's team wins the game. And Dez talking about, I'm going to show you all the times that Josh Norman got burnt and this and that. But the bottom line is, it's Dez who seems to be catching feelings behind what happened. Josh Norman is not only an excellent player, he has this ability. He's like a souped-up Cortland Finnegan in this respect. He has this ability to get under the wideout skin, the star wideout skin, to take him out of his game, to make him something usually less than he is. And you got to give it to Norman because that comes from his pure competitiveness. And it's one of the reasons, as much as I dislike the Washington franchise as a Giants fan, that he's one of my favorite players to watch. Not the most talented, but maybe the most competitive.
Max Kellerman, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but forgive me if I veer left a little bit and bring up something else. And I'm quite sure, I don't think you missed it or anything like that. My perspective is just different than yours. And I'm quite sure with your level of sensitivity, you'll appreciate where I'm about to go. There's a quote in here where Josh Norman is accusing Des Bryant of telling him after the game, "Where I'm from, we unload the clip." Now, let me tell you something. As a black man in America, particularly seeing what has transpired in the streets of Chicago over the last several years, where we're talking about murder after murder after murder that has been taking place and bodies falling by the wayside and lives being lost. And we're talking in an age about police brutality. And we've got folks like Colin Kaepernick, before he revealed what a hypocrite he was because of his unwillingness to vote and to exercise and activate himself in the last election, or any election for that matter, because we've learned that he's never registered to vote according to himself. I mean, the fact of the matter is we've got some real serious issues as it pertains to violence in America, and in particular in the black community. And so when you've got two brothers who are unquestionably elite, I know both of them, at least a little bit. I consider them both to be really good brothers that I'm incredibly proud of, the things that they've accomplished in their professional careers and beyond. This is not the kind of language we need to be hearing from them. You can't sit up there being elite as you are, being the winners that you are, thinking about your futures and the kind of impact that you're trying to have, not just on the football field, but extending beyond that. And then literally go in front of the media and start echoing stuff like this. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, because to Des Bryant's credit, he categorically denied that he had said what Josh Norman said he said. But if he is wrong, if he's lying, if he did say that, it's wrong, and we need to make sure it's clear. He don't need to be saying that to anybody.
I'm glad you brought that up, Stephen A.
And if you're Josh Norman, you damn sure don't need to be going to the media and telling the media that he said those words to you, because it's not just about you at that particular moment in time. It carries far more weight, and it contributes to the stereotypes that are attached to young black men and what they're willing to resort to in the event that there's some kind of disagreement, where by and large, we are law-abiding citizens that don't need to go that route. So I just think it's important that we make sure I got nothing but love and respect for both of them, Des and Josh. But something like this, first of all, should never be said. And number two, and just as important, if it was said between you two, that's not something you need to be going to the media.
That's where I disagree.
And telling everybody.
I think you're raising a very good point, because that's what jumped out at me too, that comment. I disagree that Norman shouldn't say it if Des said it to him. If he's making it up, obviously that's bad. But if Des actually said that, what Norman is, I mean, that's the indicator. Des plays himself when he says that. What he's saying is, the feelings he has are so serious. Josh Norman was able to affect him like that emotionally, that he says something like that to him. He has to take it to that place, because that's how much Josh Norman got a hold of his brain in that situation. No. And Josh Norman reporting what Des Bryant said, Des didn't have to say it. He said it. Josh said, "This is what this dude told me." I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Norman reporting that.
There's nothing wrong with it if it's just about you two, but when you say it to the media, you're disseminating that kind of message to the masses, and then all of a sudden, we're not just thinking about the two individuals, we're thinking about a community and the stereotypes that we have to fight against and battle against every single day.
That's
not
fair.
to mention, Max, that also Josh Norman stepped up and said at the end of it is that, hey, if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. We could end the clip we could end it out on the field all day, every day. I'm just saying that you got to think about it beyond that. Listen, they're both good brothers, and I understand that we are sitting up here talking about it, and it can be viewed as being taken out of context. But it's important that they understand that the reason that I brought it up, the reason that I'm mentioning it, is because I happen to know that there are a bunch of people out there who don't look like us, don't share our culture, that are going to take it the way that I fear they're going to take it. And that's what I think the players need to watch out for.
Fair enough. Let's leave it there.